Hello. Yes, clap for us. My name is Emily, and I'm Blair. And we produce this show called Grown Up Storytime, which is tonight. Thank you to Michael for being here and talking to you all about Fair for Houston. I personally highly endorse it, and if you haven't gone and talked to him or signed a petition, I think you should. That's all we'll say about that. Do we have any Storytime newbies out there? Yes! Very good. Okay, well, congratulations. You picked the best thing to do on the third Tuesday of the month. Very proud of you. Just also a quick reminder and potentially a new thing we're doing tonight. So first of all, yes, people will be telling stories up here on stage. They will be reading them. They are not they did not write the stories. They are reading the stories. That's the whole thing. But they can definitely hear you if you're talking. So there is no screen here, and the sound carries, because we would hope so. It's a venue for audio. But also the bar is right there. So feel free to move about the cabin, but do so with quiet movements. If you do need to have a whole conversation with somebody, there's a whole patio outside. We highly suggest it, even though it might be a little wet, but it does have cats out there, so that's fun. And then you may notice there's no intermission this time around. So we're gonna try this on for size and just keep the momentum going throughout the show. We just want to see how that goes, and we think we've got a really good story order to support just moving right through the show. Also, we have an amazing host. So there you go. After the show, if you have very strong opinions about the intermission, you should let us know. You can come talk to us, or you can DM us or whatever. But yeah, we're just trying it out. Also, we have a couple of things to tell you. More things. We have some merch over here. We have T-shirts, we have totes, we have stickers, we have some pins, which are for free. T-shirts, totes, and stickers are not free, but the pins are because they're very old. And we want to thank Continental Club for having us. Our email is on the program that you have. If you don't have a program, there's some sitting on the stage, but that email is where you're going to send your story after this evening because you've been so inspired to write one. And it also has information about other events, like if you were inspired to tell a story, but you don't want someone else to tell it, you could do that at the Moth, which is every second Tuesday. So we do have a Moth chapter. That's the place to go to if you want to tell your own story. And then I think maybe we just talk about the workshop. Yep. Do you want to do that? Sure. Okay. We're finally having a reader's workshop. After 3 years not having it. It's happening. It's happening at the Heights Library on Saturday from 2 to 4:30. You do need to let us know if you're going to show up. That's how I know how many stories to print. Also, we try to cap it at 10 people so that we have enough time to really give notes and do all the things to get you all ready for being on stage. And we have 6 people already registered, so it's going to be fun. It's going to be Saturday, and hopefully it won't be raining. Oh, it'll be indoors. Doesn't matter. Okay.
it. I think we should just start the show, and please welcome Miss Mikey, your host.
Yay! Hello! How's it going? Promotion for the dress. And now the back of the dress. How about this weather? I have to throw my hair up. I can't just do anything with my hair in this weather. Well, welcome to Grown Up Story Time, everyone. My name is Miss Mikey. And before we get started, I'll let everyone know I am a drag queen. I know! How can it be possible? This suspiciously large woman in front of you is a cross-dresser. So hide your children. As you know, there are laws running through the country saying that we are a danger to children. I know! Not your weird Uncle Joe that kind of gives weird hugs for too long or pats for pat, but the drag queens are coming after. So, what are you going to do? You're coming before I am happy to listen to these stories and be your liaison through this wacky, wild world of grown-up story time. So without further ado, shall we get to the stories? All right. Okay, well our first, and also this is the tiniest little writing they have me reading. I feel like it's kind of almost rolling. I'm just like, okay. All right, so our first story for tonight is beautifully titled, Skid Marks. I know, it's something that Dana once had. I'll leave that story to another day. Written by Danielle Simmons and read by Abby Herrera. Let's give it up for Abby! Yay, Abby!
All right. You got this. We believe in you.
You can do it!
All right. Skid Marks by Danielle Simmons. File this under things that they should tell you before having kids. At some point, you will have to teach your kids how to wipe their ass. Not just theoretically, like you're one of those asexual like stick figures in the furniture assembly manual that thinks its brevity makes it more clear. But no. And not just figuratively, as in you got to be independent, son. No, I mean you need to physically and clearly teach them how to like fold up toilet paper or wad it to each their own. I don't know, me personally, I use a lota. Reach around to the vicinity of one's anus and forcibly remove any remaining residue. It may require modeling with conjectural adjustments to their form and specific word choice. And if you wait to find the right age to teach your kids on how to do this, thinking that it should just be instinctual, skid dog now. It would be too late, and then you will be unable to achieve this milestone without creating one of those memories you fear your kid will recover as trauma 30 years later with a therapist. A few days ago, my 3-year-old took a massive shit. He groaned, he sweated, he squeezed. My God, the squeezing. At one point, even asked me to hold his hand. Until you have a person look to you in desperation, holding out their sweaty hand for a squeeze of encouragement, squinching their little face up in a half smile, half total body push, and you nearly cry for the show of vulnerability this person trusts with you. Then you witness them force out a man-sized, fully formed butt plug of a turd, and you still adore every bit of them, heart and soul. That is the purest love on this planet. Funny how similar that image is to childbirth. Take notes on this later. This was an epic poop. A true and proper dump. I just realized that I forgot to talk about the smell. Don't worry, I'll leave it that way for now. Together in triumph, we tipped the squatty potty's content into the big toilet, high-fiving and cheering his success. Dutifully, he took some toilet paper and gave his now very sore bottom a wipe, tossed it in with the various sinkers and floaters, then flushed. I later learned that the poo did not, in fact, go softly into the dark night of the porcelain thunderbox. Apparently, my mother-in-law discovered it hiding out there, and after sending it whirling into the depths of Ninja Turtle Land, concerned my husband about the importance of regular toilet cleaning. Newly energized by the 5% reduction in body weight, my son ran to our bed, pink and naked, light on his feet for the newfound lack of gravitational pull. We rolled around in our 1,000-thread count Egyptian cotton shorts, like a territorial dog, eager to transfer its scent and declare this spot his. I looked on, amused and delighted by his antics, until noticing in horror that his butt still wore the brown wreath of triumph for his recent victory.
Y'all are taking your birthday show, right?
My husband heard my alarm and came running in. Together we tried to convince him that there was still poop on his butt and he needed to try again. This was merely an opening salvo. We tried bargaining, writing, we tried reasoning. Your bum will be so itchy if we don't wipe it off now, baby. You don't want an itchy butt, do you? We tried distracting him and going in for the sneak attack. But eventually, we just had to hold him down. My husband performing a half-modified Nelson, and not so gently, really wiped his bottom. We apologized profusely as he cried that his butt hurt, and we tried to help him find some humor in the whole fiasco, or tried to help ourselves find the humor, I guess. Soon enough, we all went to bed, cuddled together as usual. Days passed. Then earlier tonight, I'm supervising bath time. My son is playing innocently with his construction vehicles and monster trucks. Unaware that I'm listening, his narration is so sweet. The excavator is ensuring that his friend, the monster truck, is comfortable at school. You want to sit by me, best friend? They share snacks together after nap time, then engage in friendly races on the playground. You beat me, good job! Then things take a sudden turn, and one of them, probably the monster truck, begins to mule in panic. I have to go poop! It's not the first or last time I will say that. Even the supportive friend and the excavator replies, I'll help you, let's go to the potty. And then the monster truck asks plaintively, can I wipe my own bum? I imagine it's listening. Anthropomorphic eyes staring up at the excavator exponentially, about to spill over in tears. A few moments pass. I hold my breath, worried about where this is going. He finally responds, yes, make sure you get all the poop. And the narrative resumes without incident. I breathe out and relax my shoulders and imagine a 33-year-old man crying to his therapist about a violent ass wiping result. I thank all the gods for the narrow escape, the bullet, the dodged bullet, the cosmic swerve, even if we did leave a few skid marks. Oh yeah, so back to the smell.
All right, give it up for Abby! All right, well, you know it's going to be a good night when we start off with shit stories. That's always so fun. Also, wonderful validation to never have fucking kids ever. And as I was sitting there listening, a memory popped into my own head about me taking a shit and then getting off said toilet, hands and knees, screaming for my mom, being like, Mom, come wipe! Which also is like, if I can remember that, how old was I? I don't know. Okay, well, so I know, right? I don't remember that. Yeah, so English shit story is always a little loosened up. No pun intended. Let's go ahead and move right on to our second story of the evening, titled A Lady Grey, written by Claire McClonis and read by Kirsten Dorier.
That's good, right? Okay, so. Lady Grey, choked by the charcoal exhaust of her uninspected 1962 Cadillac, I stood there watching her clank and ramble away down the street. I understood that the survival methods of this woman would forever remain a mystery to me. My first encounter with this fascinating, cloudy-haired sorceress was at my local laundromat. It was early summer in Houston, Texas, and steamily broiling. I had been toiling away with multiple laundry loads when our subject arrived. As she pulled up to the glass door, I noticed her noisily belching classic car immediately. It was dull, battered, and chalk gray, with the passenger side door being several shades darker than the rest of the vehicle. She was quite tall and broad in her ways. Her straight blonde hair perched upon her head in a neat, proper Victorian-era bun. Her clothing was simple and plain, yet shocking all at once. She wore a long-sleeved turtleneck with a print of tiny lavender flowers and a sea lion gray corduroy bell-bottoms. My pits beaded with sweat just by the sight of her, and although I may have imagined it, I could have sworn she wore an antique brooch pinned to the neck of her turtle. Once inside, she made a beeline for me. "Pardon me," she asked directly. "Do you have any spare quarters for the spy?" I apologetically informed her that I did not, then quickly directed her to the change machine in the corner of the room. "That machine won't work on this old 5, she assured me as she showed me the flimsy and torn, crumpled fiber. I nodded in understanding, then recommended her the owner of the map. The owner was a tiny, good-natured hobbit of a man who lived directly next door. He wore thick, black leather, round-toed shoes and had a wooden owl who perched above his front door, obviously to keep other nesting birds away and not to embellish his hobbit-like persona. I suggested that he might be able to help her further. I explained to her how he was very willing to refill the change machines when they occasionally ran out of quarters. She hesitated for a moment and then sighed deeply as she laboriously plodded back across the room to embark upon her newfound quest. I busily returned to my tasks, very much hoping to complete my duties before nightfall. Minutes later, our subject had returned and announced to me that the hobbit was either not presently home or had otherwise refused to come to the door for her. I shrugged and apologized for his absence, though his lack of presence wasn't my fault. Later, I wondered if he had been home, yet known of this woman's trying ways all too well. I quickly offered another solution to her dilemma. Pointing in the direction of a corner store, I gave her the directions to another location where she might find her desired coins. With another hefty sigh, she lumbered away off on another leg of her strenuous journey. Minutes later, she had again returned. Her efforts had been to no avail, for the clerk of that store had made it clear to her that she would need to purchase something there in the store for him to provide her with change. "Why couldn't you purchase something very inexpensive?" I inquired. "Well, then I wouldn't have enough coins to do all of my laundry," she answered resolutely. She made one final attempt with me. "Are you sure you don't have any spare coins at all?" "I'm sure. I checked," I confirmed. I looked down in her basket and noticed she hadn't brought with her any detergent. "I can give you some of my detergent if you would like to hand wash some garments in that sink over there," I offered. "Oh, no thanks," she declined. "I like the detergent that you can buy here from the machine." I nodded, said nothing.
I couldn't determine if this woman was slowly reeling me into her sticky web of diversions, or just a little dull from the daily carbon monoxide poisoning she'd received from her car's exhaust pipe. Finally, my curiosity got the better of me. Well, I began, if you save some coins by using my detergent, you could break your 5 at the corner store by purchasing the cheapest item for sale and still have enough to pay for a few loaves. Eureka, I exclaimed in my own head. No thanks, she replied abruptly. She let out a groan and heaved her basket up onto one hip, and off she trumped back to her car. I viewed her bouffant of a hairstyle as a silhouette against the fading evening light and supposed that I would never understand how this woman ever survived a day in her life. Many years later, I had dashed into CVS on an evening grocery run. As I hurriedly collected the items on my list, I could hear escalating voices coming from the cashier's counter. Reluctant to become a witness to any confrontation, I slowed my pace and peered around the battery pillar towards the participants of the altercation. I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't know what else to tell you, I overheard the cashier on duty reluctantly apologize. Well, this is absolutely just ridiculous, exclaimed a customer. Easter was only a few days ago, she continued. Ma'am, Easter was about a month ago, the tired clerk bravely corrected her. We normally get rid of all of our holiday candy about a week or so after that holiday is over, he confirmed. Wow, the customer gasped exasperatedly. I guess I'll need to mark my calendar for next year before you just go and throw it away. I guess you should, the replied, as the customer jerkily pivoted on her heels and marched disjointedly through the automatic entry door. As I spied through the AA Energizers, my subject came into focus more clearly. It was then that I recognized this livid candy customer to be none other than the Victorian laundry woman of years past. How was this woman still living? And well enough now to purchase bags of belated Easter candy, let alone stomp and yell as she had just done. She looked exactly the same as she had years prior, still garbed in gray, 1960s attire no less. In a daze, I slowly abandoned my post and followed her trail to the entry door. I placed my unpurchased items down onto the waxy floor and stepped out into the dark slate sidewalk to watch her drive away as a gray exhaust cloud enveloped her into oblivion. I wondered when I might bear witness to her return once more. Surely on a day, several years into the future, when the first beads of summer perspiration pricked my pits, and the air hung heavy with the dumpster sweets of a newly concluded spring. If I were a spy, or a fly, there would be no one else that I know of who could catch me in their cotton candy web faster than this Easter candy laundry lady gray Victorian vision.
I love that alliteration, Victorian. If no one has spent any time in a Montrose washateria before, I highly recommend it. It is equal parts humbling, equal parts charming, and equal parts, I don't even know how to describe it. It is just, you get it all. You get it all, and it's, I think, the world's problems probably could be solved at a Montrose washateria. It is a vivid, vivacious, colorful place for sure. All right, so that was Lady Gray. Thank you, Kirsten, so much for reading. Moving right along, I believe. You guys want some more stories? Yeah! Well, Be Quiet is the title of our next story. Written by Holly Carmen and read by Astrid Lane. Also, check out Astrid's fabulous dress. I am the collar and the skirt gorgeous. Give it for Astrid.
I was sleeping in bed one night when the sound of a woman's shrieking woke me. Faintly, I could hear the low rumble of a man's voice in reply. There seemed to be a couple having a very heated argument outside of the street. The couple took their argument up and down the block in front of my apartment, back and forth they went, their voices rising and falling as they passed by my window. The arguing went on for what seemed like an eternity, when suddenly there was a gunshot, followed by complete silence. Oh God, I thought, someone's dead. I quickly got out of bed and went to my window. It was pitch black. I couldn't see a thing. The woman shrieking at the man started up again, barely missing a beat. Well, I think relieved at least no one is dead, but did one of them shoot at the other one and then just go back to arguing? That makes no sense. As if in reply to my question, the gun is fired a second time. I could see from the light of the gun's explosion that the shooter was a man sitting on the bumper of a car in the small parking lot in front of my building. Who is this man and why is he sitting in the dark armed with a gun? Perhaps I should have been panicked, or outraged, or horrified at what was playing out in front of me, but the events that have been occurring over the past few years have made me cynical, borderline apathetic to the world around me and the people in it. The most emotion I can muster at this point in my life when I see some new form of fresh hell is, oh, for fuck's sake, what now? That's why I live in a not great neighborhood. I'm not afraid. My complex is gated and it has a beautiful view of the bayou. Couple that with cheap rent and an 8-minute commute to work, I find it worth having to deal with the occasional loose cannon. I always use caution. I don't go out at night, and I've never had any problems. So, hearing a gunshot in my neighborhood isn't common, but it also isn't shocking when there is one. I stare out the window at the shooter when a minivan pulls into the parking space beside him. A woman gets out and begins talking with him. Shortly into their conversation, the woman smacks the man in the arm and hurries him in through the front gate into the apartment under mine. I guess the man was waiting for his wife or girlfriend to come home. But like I said before, the neighborhood isn't great, but it's not so bad that you need an armed escort to walk the 10 feet from the parking lot to the front gate. I watched these people disappear under my feet. The apartment below mine had been going through a series of quick turnarounds. It seemed like every month or two, somebody new was hauling in moving boxes. These new people hadn't been there longer than a month. Who are these people living below me? I had not met them. I hadn't spoken to them, and I wouldn't have been able to recognize them by sight. Although I had never officially met the neighbors, I did have an incident with them. A few weeks prior to this night's events, my cat had jumped up onto the bookcase, knocking off a framed picture. The sound of the picture hitting the hardwood floor was enormous, glass shattered everywhere. I swept up the mess and quickly put the event out of mind, as one does when dealing with animals or small children. My apartment manager called the next morning. Sherry is a dear, sweet woman who enjoys talking to and getting to know the tenants of the building that she manages. She sounded defeated on the phone. Ms. Holly, there's been a noise complaint made against you. A what? I asked the older. A noise complaint, she repeats. I'm trying to understand the words that Sherry is saying to me. Someone has taken the time to go to the building's management to say that I am too loud? Sherry must have me confused with another tenant. I'm a stereotypical introvert. I like the quiet. The things I like to do require being quiet. When I'm at home, I usually spend my time reading. If I'm feeling particularly rowdy, I may listen to an occasional podcast, but never for very long and never very loudly. Nor do I even make any noise, much less make a voice so egregious that the only choice for the offended party was to lodge a formal complaint. And then I remember, Sherry, my cat knocked a picture off of my bookcase. I don't have any control over that. All right, I'm going to talk to her. Sherry sounded even more defeated than before. Who are these people living below me? How do you become so outraged by a single event that was so obviously an accident? And now to find out that they are armed and just randomly fired a gun into the night? Fantastic! I stood at my window, staring out into the silent blackness. The shrieking woman had wisely moved elsewhere by this time. I go back to bed. Just as I was drifting off again for the second time that night, I heard the distant pop, pop, pop of a helicopter. Strange, I thought, those things don't usually fly at night. The whirl of the helicopter blades came closer and closer. Suddenly, the helicopter spotlight was illuminating my bedroom. The spotlight passes, and I'm in darkness again. The spotlight came back. Light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. The helicopter is circling above my apartment complex. Well, there's no sleeping now, I think. Getting out of bed and pouring myself a bowl of cereal. I sit down on the iron couch that faces the courtyard, waiting to see what happens next. I don't have to wait for long before police officers start swarming into the courtyard dressed in full riot gear. Well, this has certainly gotten exciting, I think, eating another spoonful of grape nuts. The police quickly filled the courtyard, dressed for battle with their bulletproof vests and their rifles and their riot shields, and then nothing. They all just milled around the courtyard doing nothing for about a half hour. One of the officers even shone his flashlight on me sitting on the couch. I just shrugged it to say, what, I live here. What happens now, I wonder? Will the police have to break down the door with a battering ram like they do on TV? Or will it be more like a Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid shootout? What's going to happen if my neighbor doesn't come out? Ultimately, what happened was that an officer knocked on the door and was let inside by my neighbor. The officer went in for a little while and came out escorting my neighbor into a waiting cruiser. The model police in the yard quickly dispersed. No hail of bullets, no splintering of doors being rammed in, no nothing. I ran into Sherry the next morning. Did you hear about your friends downstairs? She asked, trying not to laugh. Oh yeah, I heard. I've got a front row seat. Can we just laugh and laugh? That's it. Okay.
All right, give it up for Astrid one more time. Also, if you've never had the pleasure of enjoying a Montrose multiplex apartment, that's what it's like. One of my favorite apartments, but 17 years ago, was on Dunleavy and Hawthorne. It was 3 and 2 roommates. I know, it was so fun. We literally split the rent 3 ways, and I was paying $300 a month, believe it or not. Yeah, crazy, right? But I remember we had the bottom apartment, and above my bedroom, our neighbor, she was a piano teacher by day, but would like write music at night. So I would be like sitting in my bed, like hear her play the piano. It was the coolest experience of my life. And then one night, I banging on the door happened, so I jump up, I open the door, and there's this young man who is covered in blood from a bloody nose. I mean, like gushing blood. And I'll never forget, because I was like, what's going on? He's like, I was on the back of this bike, and this guy just pushed me off, and I was like, well, why are you at my house? And he was like, can I come in? I was like, no, sir, you cannot come in at my house. I was like, step away. And he was like, can I just get a paper towel? And I was like, okay. So I like shut the door, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? I'm like by myself, no room. I'm like, so I go grab some paper towels, and I open up the door, and I'm like, here you go, and just like shut the door. And I think about this guy all the time. I'm like, where is this man at? What's going on? But again, you know, just like the Montrose Washateria, Montrose apartments are equal parts charming and humbling and exciting. And you never know what you're going to get, but that's why Montrose is so beloved by so many people like me. Anyway, that's my little story of my beloved Montrose apartment. It was a really, really good time. I was actually where I met Emily, and yeah, it's 1976 when we lived there. But anyway, moving right along to our next story. Is everyone having a good time before I go on? I always love grown-up story time. It's so fun. This wacky world that we live in, hear these great stories. It's just always a really, really interesting cookie time. But let's go ahead and move on to our next story titled The Splinter, written by Anonymous, read by John Abad. All right, John. Welcome, John, to the stage.
What do you do with things you shouldn't have? That cool chair you found in the trash, that sweater that was on sale that never fit quite right, the bicycle tire you replaced but still has a few miles left on it. What about that stupid thing you said, possibly while drunk? The imposter syndrome, the low self-esteem about that scar, or the weight you built been trying to lose. What do you do with that? What about the remorse from that time you said something mean? Maybe you apologize for it, maybe even try to make up for it, to move past it, but can never manage to unsay it. What do you do with it? I suppose you could keep it, work it into your life, be responsible for it, and pass it down to your children. Own it. You could ignore it, pretend it isn't there, put it in the shed, and let spiders build webs in it. You could trash it, take it out to the edge of town and dump it, hope no one sees you. Or you could try and find a good home for it. Everything in its right place, right? That's usually what I try to do. But sometimes things just don't belong anywhere. I recently had a series of difficult conversations with someone I deeply care about. Someone I've been close to for a long time. We both tried to move past each other so many times, but kept getting stuck. During one discussion, it really felt like the end. The phone just wouldn't suffice, so they said they were coming over. I was in the middle of a big woodworking project with a looming deadline and needed to finish applying a coat of oil before they arrived. In my haste, I managed to get the deep one. I tried digging it out several times. Before and after we sat and spoke in person. I got most of it, but not all of it. A few days later, my buddy told me he would dig it out. You got a fresh X-Acto knife blade, he said. I'll get it. I've got a bunch of stuff out of my hands. No way, Jose. I swallowed my pride and made an appointment with the dermatologist. I had some other stuff to ask him about anyway. I'm nervous as I sit waiting in his office because I'm a wuss. I hate the thought of things going under my skin, but it's the first thing I ask him about. He takes a look, looks at it. How long ago was it? He asks. About 3 weeks. In the last week or so, has it gotten better or worse? Better. It only hurts when I push on it a certain way, but it's a thumb I use a lot. He makes a wishy-washy face, says there's 2 ways we could go with this. I know what those 2 ways are. He says, if it were me, I would just leave it. Your body will chew it up. I go back and forth with him for a minute or two. I tell him I've considered that, but that it helps to get a professional opinion. Seeking confirmation, I ask, so if we just leave it in there, it'll just eventually dissolve? Eventually is the key word, he says, repeating, your body will eventually chew it up. I don't bring up the deep lingering interpersonal situation surrounding the splinter, or the obvious symbolism I'm resisting to assign to it. He's a good listener, but I know he has other patients to see. The next day I mentioned it to my therapist that I'm a little concerned that I have an avoidant attachment style. She reassures me that by all indications I used to be securely attached, but was simply trying to detach in this case. I tell her, I considered that, but that it helps to get a professional opinion. I don't bring up this one. She's a good listener, but I know she has other patients. I guess I was hoping against my bodily instincts that my dermatologist would cut open my thumb and pull out the last little speck of wood, and it would hurt, of course, for a little while, but it'd be better in the long run because I wouldn't have this thing stick inside me that isn't supposed to be there. I guess I was hoping that it would remove the painful reminder of those circumstances surrounding the end of a powerful but difficult relationship. That somehow, symbolically, with the removal of the splinter, I would be rid of this deep, lingering sadness and self-doubt. Perhaps I should, but I guess I'm gonna hang on to the splinter for a little while. Eventually, my body will chew it up. Although I'm not exactly sure what that means. I think it just becomes part of me forever, encased in scar tissue, embedded in the part of me that makes me human. A part of me I use every day. This may have happened once before with a little spike of steel, and hey, that doesn't hurt anymore. So I guess we're pretty resilient after all.
All right, give it up for John one more time. In the splinter. I also had things shoved up in places that lingered a little too long. Yes. In my ass. A penis. Good night. All right, well, let's keep this ball rolling, shall we? Moving right along to our next story, titled Car Sick, written by Brittany Kraft and read by Laura Herter. Give it up for Laura!
Hi, friends. You ready for another story? Yeah, this isn't a good one. I can remember at least 5 cars that I have vomited in. The first time, I can remember getting car sick when I was 6 years old and felt an uneasy feeling of my mouth salivating more than necessary. My dad didn't like to stop on any road trip unless absolutely necessary, always trying to beat his own time record. Even at 6, I understood this about him, but I knew I was going to be sick, so I asked him anyway. He told me to wait, since we were almost home. It was early 90s, when cars still had ashtrays and door handles. So as I threw up, I tried my best to aim for that spot so that it collected and pooled in the tiny receptacle. It seemed the most practical way to guarantee an easy cleanup situation, so as not to further inconvenience anyone. I remember my dad angrily scooping my puke out of the tiny cavity as he cleaned the car. Well, I wondered if he appreciated my thoughtful gesture. In college, my friend drove me home on my 21st birthday after taking me out to a fancy dinner and many drinks with friends. A mere block away from her house, I told her from the back seat that we needed to pull over so I could get the liquor that was inside of me, outside of me, as soon as possible. Unfortunately, I didn't make it home that time either. Wanting to be a considerate car seat passenger, I did attempt to roll down the window. The window, however, did not open in time, causing my vomit to stream down the side of the glass as it rolled down into that crevice of the car door. And my undigested dinner disappeared into the abyss. I'm sorry that I threw up the crab cakes. I told her regretfully as I wiped my mouth. I know they were really expensive. These days, I request to sit in front seats. And if possible, I drive or walk. And after finishing college, I moved to France and enrolled in school, signed up for free health care, discounted train tickets, accepted my monthly stipend from the government just for living there.
I lived in an apartment above a touristy store that sold dried lavender and handmade soaps. And I had those windows that you open with two hands, like you're in the scene from Beauty and the Beast. It was, for the most part, as idyllic as it sounds. I was able to take classes at a French school and work on odd jobs on the side. I taught English lessons to a set of 8-year-old twin girls who asked me to teach them the lyrics from the Shakira song, My Hips Don't Lie. They wanted to know what it was. I was a babysitter for a 7-year-old boy who once told me that he was an atheist and that no